Kalen walked through the icy courtyard of the Alpha King's palace, his boots crunching softly on the frost-covered stones. The morning sun tried to pierce through the pale gray clouds, but even its light could not warm the chill in the air. He tightened the leather straps on his armor and adjusted his cloak. Today, he would speak to Ceres, the woman he had admired from afar for years. Today, he would declare what his heart had long carried, that she was his mate. Ceres, with her golden hair braided neatly down her back and her eyes sharp as daggers, waited near the fountain. She always seemed taller than anyone else. Not because of height, but because of the way she carried herself, proud, confident, untouchable. Kalen's chest tightened at the sight of her, and for a brief moment, he questioned himself. "You wish to see me, Ceres?" Kalen asked, stepping closer, his voice steady, even as his heart pounded. Ceres turned, her gaze landing on him with a mix of curiosity and amusement. She tilted her head, studying him as one would study a curious animal. "Kalen," she said slowly, "you have something important to say, I assume, or are you simply here to embarrass yourself?" Kalen's jaw clenched, but he forced a calm expression. I have long admired you. I wish to bond with you as your mate. I am ready to pledge myself to you." A sharp laugh escaped Ceres's lips, echoing across the empty courtyard. "Pledge yourself? You? Kalen, you are loyal and strong. I will not deny that, but a mate?" She shook her head, her smile cruel. "You think your courage and loyalty can make you worthy of me? How amusing." Pain stabbed Kalen's chest. The words he had feared most were spoken, and spoken publicly. He looked around, seeing a few servants and guards quietly watching, sensing the tension. He had known Ceres could be proud, but he had hoped for kindness. Instead, she mocked him. I am sincere," Kalen said, trying to steady his voice. "My blood, my strength, it is enough." "I am..." "Enough?" Ceres interrupted, her voice like a whip. "Enough? You are nothing more than a soldier, Kalen. Nothing in this kingdom belongs to you, and yet you dare to speak of mateship with someone of noble blood?" Her words cut deeper than any sword. Kalen's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to retreat, to hide from the humiliation, but some spark within him refused. He could not run. "I may not have noble blood," he said quietly, "but my heart is true. My loyalty is unquestionable. And my courage. I have never shied from facing what others fear." Ceres laughed again, a sound that was both melodic and cruel. "Courage?" she whispered mockingly. "You call this courage? Coming here, begging, hoping for acceptance? This is foolishness, Kalen. Pure foolishness." He lowered his gaze, shame and longing battling within him. "Then, tell me, Ceres," he said softly, "what would make me worthy? How could I ever prove my heart to you?" Ceres's eyes softened for the briefest instant, but the moment passed like a shadow across the moon. "Some things cannot be earned," she said coldly. "Some things are only given, or inherited." Kalen felt the sting of her words, but he did not leave. He would wait. He would endure. Somehow, some way, he would show her the truth of his worth. Before Ceres could reply, a sudden hush fell over the courtyard. Figures cloaked in deep blue robes stepped from the shadows, their staffs glowing faintly with a soft, silvery light. The elders had come. Their presence always commanded attention. But today, their arrival felt heavier, more significant. Kalen's heart skipped a beat. He had always respected the elders for their wisdom and their ability to see beyond the surface. Now, all eyes turned toward him. Murmurs rose among the few onlookers as the eldest of the council raised his staff high. "Silence!" The elder's voice rang out, deep and commanding. Even the wind seemed to pause in obedience. "I have seen what others have not. I have looked into the threads of destiny, the bloodlines entwined across generations, and the truth has been revealed." The crowd leaned forward, curiosity and fear mingling. Kalen's pulse raced. He had no idea what the elder meant, but the air was thick with the weight of revelation. "This one," the elder said, pointing directly at Kalen, "carries the blood of the Alpha King himself. Hidden, forgotten, yet alive." The prophecy spoke of a warrior rejected, a mate scorned, yet destined to inherit the throne and the legacy of our kingdom. A gasp swept through the courtyard. Even Ceres's laughter faltered, replaced by a sharp intake of breath. Her eyes widened, disbelief flashing in their depths. "No," she whispered. Kalen froze, his mind struggling to comprehend the words. The blood of the Alpha King? Him? It felt unreal. Yet the gaze of the elders left no doubt. Something within him stirred an ancient power, dormant for generations, awakening in response to the truth. The elder continued, his voice low but carrying across the courtyard. "This revelation does not erase the trials he must face. The bloodline is his, but the path is perilous. Enemies lurk in shadows, powers beyond this world will test him. And yet, destiny cannot be denied." Ceres stepped closer, her pride battling the sudden shift in her perception. "Kalen, how?" she asked, her voice trembling. For the first time, her sharp words were gone, replaced by uncertainty. Kalen felt a strange mixture of fear and triumph. He could not yet claim victory, but the scales of fate had tipped in his favor. He opened his mouth to speak, but the elder's raised hand silenced him. "Let it be known," the elder declared, "that Kalen, though scorned, though mocked, is the heir of the Alpha King. He shall be trained, guided, and prepared. All who oppose him shall face the consequences of challenging destiny itself." The murmurs of the crowd grew into a clamor. Some bowed in awe, others whispered in disbelief, and a few of the noble families exchanged anxious glances. Ceres remained near Kalen, her eyes searching his face, her pride still intact, but her heart unsettled. Kalen stood taller than he had ever felt before. The humiliation he had endured moments ago now seemed distant, almost meaningless. The weight of destiny pressed upon his shoulders, and with it, a strange sense of purpose. Yet even in this moment of revelation, doubt lingered. Could he truly fulfill the legacy of the Alpha King? Could he earn the respect of those who had mocked him? And what of Ceres, the mate who had rejected him so cruelly? Would her heart ever change? The elder lowered his staff and stepped back, the glow fading into the cold morning light. Kalen's gaze met Ceres's once more. The laughter, the mockery, the sharp words, they all seemed like echoes of another life. Ceres's voice, now quiet and unsure, broke the tension. I never imagined," she said, trailing off. Her eyes lingered on him, searching, questioning, and perhaps wondering if she had misjudged him all along. Kalen's heart beat faster, a mixture of hope, fear, and anticipation swirling inside him. "Ceres," he said softly, "I do not know what the future holds, but I will face it. I will prove myself. Not for the throne, not for the elders, but for those who believe in me, and for you." Ceres blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. She wanted to speak, to respond, but no words came. The tension between them hung like the first crack of a storm, waiting to break. A gust of wind swept through the courtyard, carrying the whispers of the past and the promise of the future. Kalen's eyes remained on Ceres, knowing that this was only the beginning of his journey, of his destiny, and perhaps of a love that had yet to bloom. As the crowd began to disperse, the elder's voice echoed one final time. "Destiny awakens, and the heir walks among you. Watch closely, for the kingdom's fate shall be shaped by his choices." Kalen felt the weight of the prophecy settle firmly upon him. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with determination. He would not fail, not for himself, not for the Alpha King's blood, and not for Ceres, who had rejected him, yet now stirred a longing deep within his soul. The frost on the stones shimmered as the morning sun broke through the clouds for the first time that day. Kalen took a deep breath, ready to face what awaited him, and somewhere in the crowd, Saris watched him, her heart uncertain, her pride unbroken, but a small flicker of curiosity, and perhaps regret, burning quietly within. Kalen woke before the sun, the memory of the elder's proclamation still heavy in his chest. The courtyard, once filled with the scorn of Saris's laughter, was now replaced by silence and distant whispers of the palace guards. He could feel it, something had shifted. The air itself seemed different, charged with possibility and danger. He ran his fingers along the cold stone of the window ledge, trying to steady his mind. He had always known he was different in some way. Ever since he could remember, he had felt a subtle power, a pull toward things unseen, as though the world itself whispered secrets only he could hear. But the elder's words had changed everything. He was not just a soldier, a loyal warrior of the kingdom, he was the heir of the Alpha King. The thought thrilled him, yet frightened him. The weight of such a legacy was heavier than any sword he had ever carried. The sound of footsteps broke his reverie. Kalen turned to see Saris approaching, her expression unreadable. She moved with the grace of someone accustomed to command and attention. Today, she seemed softer, though the pride in her eyes remained. "Kalen," she said, stopping a few feet away. I do not understand. How can this be true?" Her voice was quiet, almost trembling, though she tried to hide it. "The elders, the prophecy. You?" Kalen met her gaze, steady but cautious. "It is true, Saris. I do not fully understand it myself, but the blood of the Alpha King flows in me. I am to inherit the throne. Though the path will not be easy, the elders say enemies will come, and the kingdom will test me at every step." Saris's lips parted slightly, as though she wanted to speak, but no words came. Her pride wrestled with her growing curiosity. "And you believe you can face all this? With no training, no preparation?" Kalen's eyes narrowed with determination. "I will learn. I will rise. The Alpha King's blood is not merely a title, it is strength, wisdom, and courage. I have known hardship before, and I have faced death. I will not fail, Saris." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the frost of the morning curling around their boots. Kalen wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between them that had once seemed insurmountable. But he did not yet. Later that morning, Kalen was summoned to the Elders' Hall. The chamber was vast, its walls carved with scenes of past Alpha King's battles, alliances, and sacrifices immortalized in stone. A cold fire burned in the center of the room, sending flickering shadows across the floor. The elders stood in a semicircle, their faces hidden beneath deep hoods. "Kalen," the eldest said, his voice echoing in the hall, "you must understand the gravity of your inheritance. The bloodline you carry is not merely royal. It is ancient, bound to forces both seen and unseen. To claim your place, you must embrace the power that flows within you. You must learn to command it, control it, and use it wisely." Kalen bowed, absorbing the weight of their words. "I will do whatever is necessary," he said. "Tell me how to begin." The elder raised a hand, and the fire in the center of the room blazed higher, sending sparks dancing into the air. "First, you must understand the visions," he said. "The Alpha King's blood carries memories, echoes of the past. You will see battles fought, allies betrayed, victories won, and sacrifices made. These visions will guide you, but they may also torment you. They will test your courage, your wisdom, and your heart." Kalen nodded, trying to steady his rising fear. He had faced many trials as a warrior, but this was different. This was destiny itself, whispering in shadows, challenging him to rise or fall. As he left the hall, he found Saris waiting in the courtyard. She did not speak at first, merely watching him as he approached. Her eyes were bright, thoughtful, a mixture of curiosity and something deeper that Kaelin could not name. "You will see the visions soon," he said quietly. "They will guide me, but they may also test us. And the kingdom." Saris looked away, her fingers brushing a braid of her hair nervously. I do not know what to say. You were always strong, Kaelin, but I never imagined." Her voice trailed off. Kaelin studied her, his heart caught between hope and hesitation. "I know what I once was to you," he said softly. "The mockery, the laughter. It hurt. But I do not resent you. I only ask that you see me now, truly see me, as I begin this journey." Saris met his gaze again, her pride wrestling with her growing admiration. I will watch," she said quietly. "But I do not know if I can trust what I feel." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion in the courtyard. A group of palace guards rushed toward the gates, shouting warnings. Kaelin and Saris exchanged a glance, and without a word, Kaelin drew his sword. A band of masked assassins had infiltrated the palace, their movements swift and silent. They were after him, he could feel it in their intent. Kaelin's training as a warrior surged forth, and he met them head-on, his blade moving with precision and strength. Saris did not hesitate. She grabbed a staff from a nearby guard and moved with unexpected skill, striking one of the attackers before he could reach Kaelin. Her actions were quick, decisive, and fearless. Kaelin's heart thudded not just from the fight, but from seeing her courage firsthand. Together, they fought, a strange rhythm forming between them. Kaelin protected the crown. Saris defended him. For the first time, the bond between them felt real, unspoken but undeniable. The assassins were driven back, fleeing into the shadows from which they had come. When the courtyard fell silent, Kaelin turned to Saris. "You saved me," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Why?" "Kaelin," Saris hesitated, brushing frost from her cloak. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply, though her eyes betrayed more than her words. There was fear, yes, but also awe, and something softer, something like respect. Kaelin sheathed his sword and stepped closer. "You do not need to hide your feelings," he said gently. "I do not expect love yet. Only honesty. Only truth." Saris looked at him, and for a moment, her mask of pride fell away. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, uncertain of what to say. The bond between them had shifted danger, had forced them closer, yet neither fully understood the new weight of their connection. As they stood together, the morning sun broke through the clouds, casting light on the frost-covered stones. Kaelin felt the power of the Alpha King stir within him, the latent magic of his bloodline awakening in response to the threat they had just faced. He was no longer merely a soldier or a rejected mate, he was the heir, and with that came responsibility, strength, and danger. The elders watched from a distance, their expressions hidden, yet their eyes gleaming with a quiet approval. Kaelin's journey was only beginning, but he had already faced his first test and survived. But even as victory filled the courtyard, a shadow lingered. In the dark corners of the palace, whispers moved like serpents, speaking of betrayal and ambition. Someone knew of Kaelin's true bloodline, and not all would welcome the heir of the Alpha King. Saris felt it too, a chill that had nothing to do with the frost. She stepped closer to Kaelin, her voice barely audible. "Kaelin, you must be careful. There are those who will not let this revelation go unchallenged." Kaelin nodded, his gaze fierce and steady. "I know, and I will face them, but with you by my side, I will endure anything." Saris did not respond, but her hand brushed his briefly, a fleeting touch that spoke of unspoken promises and emerging trust. Neither fully understood the path ahead, yet both felt the shift in the air, the change of destiny, the rise of power, and the stirring of something far older than either of them. A bond that had been mocked, scorned, and now could not be denied. The sun rose higher, illuminating the palace gates and the courtyard where the battle had been fought. Kaelin's mind was already turning to the training the elders had promised, to the visions he would soon see, and to the trials that awaited him. But for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope, not just for the throne, not just for destiny, but for the mate who had once rejected him, and whose heart might yet awaken to him. And somewhere deep within the palace walls, in shadows where only the clever dared tread, eyes watched Kaelin. A figure whispered to another, "The heir walks among us." And soon, the game begins. The path of destiny was set. The first trial survived, but the true challenge of power, loyalty, and love was only beginning. The sun had barely risen when Kaelin stepped into the training hall. The walls were lined with portraits of past Alpha Kings, their eyes seeming to follow him as if judging his every move. He could feel the blood of the Alpha King stirring within him, a faint heat along his veins, urging him forward. Today was different. Today, he would begin the first trials of mastery. The elders had warned him that learning to control the ancient power would be difficult, and Kaelin felt that difficulty in every movement. His sword cuts seemed sluggish, his magic unsteady. But he refused to stop. Each strike, each spell, was a step toward the heir he was meant to become. Failure was not an option, not for him, not for the kingdom, and not for the mate who had once mocked him. Cerys arrived in the training hall shortly after, her steps silent but her presence commanding. She watched him for a moment before speaking. "You move with strength, Kaelin, but your control is lacking. Power without control will destroy you." Kaelin nodded, not offended, only focused. "I know. I will learn." Cerys tilted her head, studying him with those piercing golden eyes. For a long time, she had seen him only as a loyal warrior, brave but ordinary. Now, she saw something different. Potential, courage, and a spark of destiny that refused to be denied. "You have always been brave," she said softly. "But bravery alone does not make a leader. You must learn strategy, diplomacy, and the patience to endure more than just battle." Kaelin lowered his sword and met her gaze. "Then, teach me," he said simply. "If you truly believe I can become the Alpha King, help me learn." "I cannot do this alone." Cerys blinked. The offer surprised her, though she did not show it. She had never thought of Kaelin as a student in her eyes, only as someone to test, to scorn, to challenge. But now, he was different, humble in his power, earnest in his heart, yet unafraid of the truth. "Very well," she said finally. "I will help. But remember, the path of a king is filled with enemies, both seen and unseen. You must trust no one completely. Not even me." Kaelin nodded. Trust had never come easily to him, but he felt a strange sense of reassurance from her words. They were not easy words, but they were honest. The days passed with intense training. Kaelin learned to control the subtle power flowing through his blood, to feel the echoes of the Alpha Kings who had come before him. He saw visions, battles fought long ago, alliances formed and broken, and sacrifices made for the kingdom. These visions weighed heavily upon him, but with each one, his understanding grew. He saw not just the glory of the throne, but its burdens, the loneliness, the responsibility, and the constant threat of betrayal. Cerys proved to be an unexpected guide. She was harsh when necessary, yet fair. She tested his endurance, his patience, and his mind, forcing him to think not just as a warrior, but as a leader. Through her guidance, Kaelin began to see her differently, not as someone unattainable or cruel, but as someone strong, intelligent, and fiercely loyal. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky burned with red and gold, Kaelin and Cerys trained alone in the courtyard. The air was crisp, the shadows long, and the world seemed to hold its breath. "You have grown stronger," Cerys said, her voice soft, almost reluctant. "Stronger than I imagined possible." Kaelin lowered his sword and studied her face. "I owe it to you," he said quietly. "To your guidance, and to the courage you showed in the courtyard." defending me. That day, it changed something. Ceres's eyes widened slightly. She looked away, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. It was necessary, she said carefully. For the kingdom, for you. But do not mistake my actions for feelings. Kaelin smiled faintly, undeterred. I do not mistake them. I only see what is true. You are brave. You are loyal. And perhaps, you are beginning to trust me. Ceres did not respond immediately. The wind carried her silence, heavy with meaning. Kaelin felt it. The subtle shift in their bond. A thread forming that neither could yet name, but their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. In the shadows of the palace, rival nobles whispered. One of them, Lord Merrin, had long coveted the throne and viewed Kaelin's revelation as a threat. Merrin's eyes glinted with malice as he spoke to his allies. The boy is untested. The prophecy means nothing if he cannot survive what comes next. The Alpha King's blood is no shield. He will fall, and when he does, the throne will be ours to take. Kaelin and Ceres were unaware of the plotting, though the sense of danger was never far from Kaelin's mind. He knew that claiming his inheritance would bring challenges beyond training and visions. Politics, ambition, and jealousy would be as dangerous as any sword. The test came sooner than expected. A dark presence stirred in the palace. Ancient and malevolent, it had lain dormant for generations, bound by the blood of the Alpha Kings. But now, it sensed the awakening of the air. Shadows coiled like serpents through the halls, whispering threats and sowing fear. Kaelin felt the disturbance in his blood, a prickling in his senses that warned him of impending danger. Ceres noticed it too. Something moves in the palace, she said, her voice tense. It is not human. Stay alert, Kaelin. Whatever this is, it tests the bloodline. That night, Kaelin's visions intensified. He saw the Alpha Kings of the past battling a shadow that threatened the kingdom. He felt their fear, their courage, and their determination. The visions left him drained, but they also illuminated a path. The heir must confront the darkness, not only with sword and power, but with wisdom and trust. The next morning, Kaelin and Ceres faced the first trial together. A dark spirit, born from the jealousy and malice of those who had opposed the Alpha Kings, emerged from the palace shadows. Its form was twisted, shadowed, and cruel. Its eyes glowed with a cold light, and it spoke without words, sending whispers of doubt and fear into Kaelin's mind. He felt the blood of the Alpha King rise within him, a heat that strengthened his limbs and sharpened his senses. Ceres stood beside him, staff raised, her expression fierce. Do not falter, she said. You are the heir. You are stronger than it believes. The battle was not simple. The spirit struck with unseen hands, feeding on fear and weakness. Kaelin's sword moved with precision, guided by the echoes of past kings. His magic flared, bright and strong, repelling the shadows that sought to envelop them. Ceres moved with agility, striking and defending, her loyalty unwavering. Through the struggle, Kaelin realized something profound. Power alone would not win this battle. He needed strategy, patience, and the bond he shared with Ceres. Their movements synchronized, trust guiding them where instinct alone could not. Finally, with a surge of energy, Kaelin struck the final blow. The spirit shattered into shadows, dissipating into the air. The courtyard was silent, except for their heavy breathing and the fading echoes of the struggle. Kaelin turned to Ceres, and for the first time, he saw a softness in her eyes that had never been there before. You were amazing, he said quietly. I could not have done it without you. Ceres looked away, her face flushed with exertion and something more subtle, pride, perhaps, or admiration. We fought together, she said simply. Do not forget that. The strength was ours, not yours alone. Kaelin nodded, but in his heart, he knew that their bond had changed. Mockery and scorn were replaced with respect, understanding, and the faint stirrings of something deeper. As they walked back to the palace, the wind carrying the first hints of evening, a shadow watched them from the towers above. Lord Merrin's eyes glinted with malice. "The heir survives," he muttered, "but his strength will not protect him from what is coming. Soon, very soon, the kingdom will see true betrayal." Kaelin and Cerys did not notice the eyes watching them, but a chill lingered in the air, reminding them that even victories came with new challenges. Kaelin's gaze met Cerys's as they entered the palace gates. "We survived the first trial," he said softly. "But I know more will come. And I do not yet know who I can trust." Cerys nodded, her fingers brushing briefly against his arm, a fleeting touch that carried more meaning than words. "Then we face it together," she said. "But Kaelin, be ready. Destiny is not kind, even to those of royal blood." As the doors of the palace closed behind them, a single whisper carried through the shadows. "The heir walks among us, but will he survive the fire that awaits? And what of the mate who once mocked him? Will her heart awaken before it is too late?" The path of destiny stretched before Kaelin, filled with danger, loyalty, and the flickering promise of love. The fires of redemption had begun, and both he and Cerys would be tested like never before. The palace had never felt so alive or so dangerous. Whispers moved like shadows through the halls, carrying rumors of plots, betrayals, and unseen threats. Kaelin walked through the corridors with steady steps, the weight of the Alpha King's blood pressing on his shoulders. Every glance from the nobles reminded him that some celebrated his rise, while others coveted the throne he was destined to claim. Cerys walked beside him, her presence steady, her eyes sharp. She had grown in ways Kaelin had not expected. Her pride tempered with wisdom, her judgment guided by both heart and mind. She had trained him, challenged him, and now fought beside him not as a mentor, but as an equal, a companion bound by trust and unspoken understanding. "You are different now," she said softly as they reached the balcony overlooking the courtyard. "Stronger, wiser, and unafraid. The Kaelin the first once mocked would not survive what you have faced." Kaelin smiled faintly, though his mind was far from ease. "I have not faced the true challenge yet," he said. "The court may bow, the spirits may be defeated, but there are still those who seek the throne, and who would see me fall before I even claim it." Cerys's eyes narrowed. "Then we must be ready. Together." That evening, a grand council was held in the main hall. The nobles gathered, their faces masks of politeness hiding ambition, envy, and fear. Kaelin stood before them, the blood of the Alpha King coursing through him, filling him with a presence both commanding and humble. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny, the expectation of his every word and movement. "My lords and ladies," Kaelin began, his voice steady and clear. "I am Kaelin, heir of the Alpha King. I do not claim this position lightly. I claim it with respect for the kingdom, for its people, and for the legacy that flows through my veins. Those who seek to test me shall find I am prepared not through arrogance, but through training, wisdom, and the guidance of those I trust." Murmurs rose among the nobles, some nodding in respect, others frowning in suspicion. Among them, Lord Merrin's eyes gleamed with malice. He had waited for this moment, believing Kaelin unprepared, vulnerable. But Kaelin's words carried weight, a quiet strength that made even the most ambitious hesitate. As the council continued, a sudden chill swept through the hall. Candles flickered, and the shadows in the corners seemed to stretch unnaturally. Kaelin's blood hummed with warning. He could feel it, another force moving, unseen but dangerous. Cerys stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. "It begins," she whispered. "Be ready." From the shadows, a figure emerged, a noble from the outskirts of the kingdom, shrouded in dark robes. He carried an ancient relic, a dagger infused with magic that had been outlawed for centuries. His eyes burned with intent. "Heir of the Alpha King," the figure hissed, "your time ends now. The throne belongs to those with true power, not whispers of prophecy. The hall erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed. Guards rushed forward. And Kalen felt the ancient power of his blood surge within him. He moved with precision, his sword slicing through the first wave of attackers, magic flaring from his hands to shield him from the dark relic. Cerys was at his side instantly, her staff cracking against the dark figure's weapon. They fought together, a rhythm born of trust and shared struggle. Kalen felt the echoes of the Alpha Kings guiding his movements, but it was Cerys's loyalty, courage, and insight that made the difference. The dark figure's magic struck again and again, but Kalen's control had grown. He channeled the strength of generations, and with a final strike, he shattered the relic and sent the figure retreating into the shadows. The hall was silent, save for the heavy breathing of the survivors. Kalen turned to Cerys, and for the first time, there was no barrier between them. No mockery, no scorn, only mutual respect, trust, and the beginnings of something deeper. "You were amazing," he said quietly. "I could not have done this without you." Cerys looked down, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "We fought together," she said simply. "Do not forget that. Strength is not mine alone, nor yours." Kalen smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with victory. For the first time, he felt the weight of his destiny and the promise of love intertwined. He reached out, gently taking her hand. "Cerys, I have waited for this moment, to stand beside you not as a scorned mate, but as your equal. I care for you, more than I have ever dared to say." Cerys met his gaze, her eyes searching, conflicted, yet softening. "Kalen, I never understood before. I was proud, foolish, blind to what was real. But now, I see. You are more than I ever imagined. Strong, brave, and true." Her words were cut off by the sudden approach of the elders. The eldest raised his staff, the glow of ancient magic illuminating the hall. "Kalen, heir of the Alpha King," he said, voice firm yet approving. "You have faced the first test, defended the kingdom, and embraced the blood of your ancestors. But know this, the challenges ahead are greater, for the path of the throne is never simple. Trust, courage, and wisdom will guide you, and so will the bonds you have forged with those who walk beside you." Kalen looked at Cerys, squeezing her hand gently. She nodded, her pride softened by honesty, and her respect deepened by shared trials. Together, they stood, facing the nobles, the hall, and the unseen threats that still lurked. But as the night fell and the palace quieted, a new shadow crept through the corridors. Lord Marin had not given up. He had learned of Kalen's visions, of the power stirring in his blood, and he was determined to claim the throne by any means. In the darkness, he whispered to those who would follow him, "The heir is strong, but strength alone does not secure a crown. Soon, the kingdom will kneel to me." Kalen, unaware of this plotting, focused on Cerys. "Tomorrow, training begins anew," he said quietly. "We will grow stronger, face every challenge, and protect the kingdom together." Cerys's hand brushed his once more, a fleeting touch filled with unspoken meaning. "Together," she agreed softly. For the first time, her pride was tempered by understanding, and her heart allowed a flicker of vulnerability. The moon rose high, casting silver light over the palace and courtyard. Kalen stood at the balcony, looking over the sleeping kingdom. He felt the power of his bloodline, the weight of his legacy, and the growing bond with Cerys. They had survived trials, fought darkness, and proven their strength. Yet he knew the true test was yet to come, not just of power, but of loyalty, love, and the heart of the mate who had once mocked him. The night air was still, but Kalen could sense it whispers of destiny, challenges yet unseen, and the promise of trials that would demand everything he had. He clenched his fists, determination blazing in his eyes. He would not fail. He would protect the kingdom, honor the Alpha King's blood, and face every threat that came. And he would do so with Cerys at his side, the mate who had rejected him now walking beside him, bound by trust, respect, and the slow awakening of love. As dawn approached, Kaelin and Cerys stood together, their hands intertwined. The palace doors opened, and the first light of morning painted the walls in gold. The kingdom was theirs to protect, the legacy theirs to carry. And in that moment, Kaelin realized something he had never understood before. Power was nothing without loyalty, and legacy was nothing without love. Somewhere in the shadows, Lord Merrin's eyes burned with envy and malice. The true trials were yet to come, but Kaelin was ready. The heir of the Alpha King had survived the fires of destiny, and the mate who had once mocked him had seen the truth. Together, they would face what the future held. Unafraid, united, and bound by a bond that no scorn or betrayal could break. Kaelin squeezed Cerys's hand gently. "The journey is only beginning," he said. Cerys looked at him, her eyes steady and warm. "Then we walk it together," she said. The sun rose fully over the palace, golden light spilling across the kingdom. In that light, Kaelin felt the weight of the Alpha King's blood, the promise of destiny, and the quiet stirrings of a love that had grown from scorn, through trials, to something powerful and enduring. The kingdom was safe for now. The heir had emerged, the mate had awakened, and the future uncertain, dangerous, and filled with possibility awaited them both.